The chow tent was jammed shoulder to shoulder. Heat pooled beneath the canvas roof, trapping the stench of diesel, sweat, and burnt coffee. Metal trays clanged against folding tables as exhausted hands reached for meals that tasted exactly like the night before. A young female cook threaded her way through the narrow aisle, a dented pot braced against her hip. Grease and dust darkened her apron. Her head stayed lowered. Her pace was even. 2 infantrymen leaned against a support pole near the drink coolers. "Gravy duty," one muttered with a crooked grin. The other snorted. "Spoon warrior." They watched her pass. Bet when things go sideways, kitchen staff are the first to bolt. The first added under his breath. A few nearby soldiers heard it. One smirked. Another looked away. No one corrected him. The cook slowed for half a step, not enough to draw attention, not enough to spark anything, then kept moving. A couple of eyes followed her deeper into the tent. Someone noticed how square her shoulders stayed. Someone else noticed she didn't flinch. Her face remained calm, blank, but her eyes held something unreadable. Not hurt, not anger. Something older. Something that didn't belong in a chow line. She reached the far table, set the pot down, and resumed serving as if nothing had been said. But she'd heard every word. Her name was Specialist Mara Hayes, 27 years old. On paper, she was a food service specialist assigned to the kitchen of a remote desert outpost most maps barely bothered to name. 6 months earlier, she'd arrived on a supply convoy no one paid attention to. No ceremony. No welcome. No curiosity. Just another body added to a place already full of tired faces. Mara came from a small Appalachian town tucked between ridgelines and coal roads, a place where people learned early how to work with their hands, where silence wasn't awkward. It was normal. Her father had been Army infantry. He rarely spoke about his service. Just fragments. Enough to plant something inside her. Enough to make her enlist young. Her official file showed nothing remarkable. No commendations. No combat ribbons. No specialist schools. Just kitchen duty. Before her reassignment, she'd served with another unit. Where or why wasn't listed. The record simply showed a transfer from one quiet place to another. On this base. Mara existed in the spaces between movement. She woke long before sunrise, before generators reached full hum. Before patrol briefings, before boots hit gravel, she unlocked the kitchen alone, started the coffee, checked inventory, lit burners, chopped vegetables in steady, even strokes. No headphones. No music. Just the soft tap of a blade and the distant rumble of engines. She prepped breakfast for hundreds, served it without comment, washed trays, scrubbed counters, mopped floors, then started again. By the time most soldiers finished their last cigarette and turned in, Mara was still wiping grease from steel surfaces. She slept fewer hours than almost anyone on the base. No one noticed. During the day, she spoke only when spoken to. "Yes, Sergeant." "No, Sergeant." Copy. No small talk. No jokes. No stories. She never sat with groups. If she ate at all, it was standing near the back wall, quick bites, eyes drifting toward doorways. Always doorways. She didn't slump or sprawl like exhausted soldiers often did. She stood balanced, centered, a habit so ingrained she likely didn't realize it. Physically, Mara didn't stand out. Lean build, narrow shoulders, brown hair pulled into a no-nonsense bun, old boots that had been resoled at least once, a faded unit hoodie under her stained apron on cooler nights. Her uniform followed regulations exactly. No flashy patches. No morale gear. No personalization. Her rank sat clean and unremarkable where it belonged. To most people, she looked exactly like her record said a cook. Someone who passed trays and stirred pots. Someone who stayed far from danger. Some soldiers were polite. They said thanks. They nodded in passing. Others treated her like background furniture, something to step around, something that existed but didn't matter. A few were casually dismissive, not cruel, not aggressive, just effortlessly disrespectful. The kind that stung more because it was casual. Mara never responded, never rolled her eyes, never sighed, never muttered. She absorbed it and let it pass through her like wind through an open door inside. She carried things differently. She didn't think about proving anyone wrong. She didn't rehearse confrontations or imagine speeches. She focused on tasks, on motions, on staying steady. When the bass grew loud, she grew quieter. When jokes flew, she listened without reacting. When tension rose, her breathing slowed. Against her skin, beneath her shirt, rested a plain steel necklace, no engraving, no shine, just a simple chain and a flat tag. She never showed it, never mentioned it. But when stress crept in, her fingers found it. A brief press, then her hand dropped away. One evening, while serving dinner, a private glanced at her apron. "You ever leave this tent?" he asked with a half grin. Mara placed a scoop of rice on his tray. "Yes," she said. He chuckled. "Didn't think kitchen staff got issued outside." A couple of soldiers snorted. Mara slid the tray forward. "Next?" No argument. No explanation. A nearby sergeant watched the exchange. Opened his mouth, closed it. Mara kept serving. Her posture never changed. Her hands didn't shake. Her fingers brushed the necklace once, then released. She moved. Invisible, uncomplaining, exactly as everyone believed she. Was the first sign the day would be different? Came just after noon, not inside the base, but far beyond the wire. A dull thump rolled across the desert, more felt than heard. A few heads turned. Conversations paused. Then life resumed. Someone said training rounds. Someone said nothing. Radios crackled more often after that. Patrol schedules shifted. Watch rotations tightened. Extra bodies filled the towers. No announcements. No formations. Just a subtle rise in posture. By late afternoon, rumors drifted. Insurgents north of the ridgeline, probing fire. Locals moving where they shouldn't. None confirmed. All enough to tighten shoulders. Inside the chow tent, dinner prep continued. Steam rose from pots. Knives struck cutting boards. The smell of scorched oil hung thick. Mara worked without change portioning, stirring, wiping counters. Her face showed nothing. 2 infantrymen leaned near the drink cooler. "If stuff kicks off tonight, I'm not trusting my life to a spoon," one said. "Cooks and clerks will be screaming for medevac first." The other replied. Muted chuckles followed. Mara slid another tray forward. Didn't look up. A corporal stepped closer. Studied her. "Hey, specialist," he said. "Yes, corporal. You even know how to hold a rifle?" The question lingered. No laughter at first, then a ripple of it. Mara smoothed mashed potatoes onto a tray. Didn't answer. The corporal scoffed. "Figures." The laughter faded into awkward silence. Mara kept working. Her shoulders stayed squared. Her gaze drifted briefly to the open tent flap, then back to the trays. Outside, wind pushed sand in thin sheets. Towers swept slow arcs. Radios crackled. The air thickened. Not suddenly, but steadily. Mara felt it. She always did. She counted heads without thinking. Noted who sat near exits, who faced inward. She noticed the gap between supply crates outside, the blind slice of ground it exposed. She nudged a trash bin with her boot just enough to clear a walking path. No one noticed. Another thump rolled closer. The generator faltered. Lights dimmed, then went out. Shouts broke out briefly. Emergency lights washed the tent in dull red. Power returned in flickers. Engineers sprinted past. Mara never stopped moving in the red glow. Her face looked colorless, focused. "If shooting starts, she should hide in the freezer," someone muttered. No one laughed. Mara passed another tray. Next. Wind carried faint popping sounds, now too soft to identify, too sharp to ignore. Towers adjusted. Tension stacked. She scanned the tent. Subtly armor, weapons, hands shaking, jaws clenched. Her fingers pressed the necklace once. A radio cut through the noise. "Stand by. Possible contact outside perimeter." Silence followed. Mara shifted her weight toward the open side of the tent. barely perceptible, balanced, ready. Something was wrong. Not one thing, many small ones lining up. She didn't argue with the feeling. She listened to it. Near the end of the line, she knelt to clean spilled gravy. Her sleeve rode up, revealing a pale old scar along her forearm, too clean to be accidental. A nearby private noticed, looked away. Later, she quietly corrected a young soldier's weapon jam. Calm, precise, exact sequence. It cleared instantly. He stared after her, confused. Near the prep area, an older supply sergeant watched her hands as she cleaned knives. Spacing perfect, grip relaxed, posture aligned. Something tugged at his memory. He frowned, then looked away. Outside, the sky darkened. The jokes never came back. People ate for fuel, not comfort. The desert glowed red on the horizon, heavy, warning red. Mara paused at the tent flap. Pressed the necklace once. Released it. Night was coming, and something in her knew it. Wouldn't be quiet. The explosion hit so close, the ground seemed to jump sharp, concussive, slamming into the perimeter. The chow tent shuddered. Metal trays rattled, and everything changed. Asterisk. Someone screamed. Half a second later, the alarm began to wail. Relentless. Red emergency lights snapped on for a heartbeat. No one moved. Shock locked bodies in place. Then everything fractured at once. Chairs tipped. Trays slammed to the floor. Soldiers reached for rifles that weren't in their hands. Some sprinted. Some dove for cover. Some froze exactly where they stood. Outside, automatic fire cracked in sharp, furious bursts. A second explosion detonated farther down the perimeter, closer than the first. Dust blasted through the tent opening in a filthy cloud. Mara dropped the tray she was holding. It shattered on impact. She didn't scream. She didn't gasp. She didn't hesitate. Her body moved before conscious thought could catch up. A soldier near the entrance stumbled backward, tripping over a fallen chair. His rifle slipped from his hands and skidded across the concrete. Mara stepped past him and snatched it up. The bolt sat halfway open, jammed. Her thumb hit the magazine release. Magazine out. Bolt locked. She racked it once. Twice. A round popped free and clinked against the floor. Magazine back in. Bolt released less than 2 seconds. Mara turned toward the open flap as incoming rounds snapped against the HESCO barrier outside. Sparks flashing. Contact. Someone yelled, "North side." Another voice shouted. Mara took 3 fast steps toward the doorway. "Get behind hardcover now." Her voice cut through the chaos, not loud. Not panicked. Flat, command level. The kind of tone that didn't ask the soldiers near the entrance moved, instantly where she pointed. "Left side of the storage shed," Mara said. "Use the crates. You'll have a clear angle." They didn't question her. Didn't ask why. They ran. A flare streaked into the sky. White light exploded overhead, bleaching the world, harsh and sharp. Shadows snapped into brutal clarity. Mara dropped to one knee just inside the tent opening. She leaned around the doorframe just enough to catch movement near the outer wired, dark shapes shifting between rocks and scrub. Not a mass assault. Probing fire. Testing, she lined up the rifle. Her breathing slowed. One squeeze. A turnaround burst. The rifle bucked gently. She adjusted a fraction. Another controlled burst. She didn't spray. Didn't empty the magazine. She fired like someone conserving ammunition. Like someone who understood how long fights could last. Behind her, chaos continued. A private slammed into a table and slid to the floor. Someone screamed for a corpsman. Mara shifted, staying tight to cover. Reloaded. Fast, clean, no wasted motion. Another flare burned overhead. Dust thickened the air. Visibility dropped. Mara angled slightly left and fired again. Short bursts. Precise, not dramatic. Not heroic, functional. 2 soldiers near the condiment station stared at her, not because she was firing, but because of how she was firing. Stable stance. Knees bent, elbows tucked. Rifle seated perfectly. Her shoulders barely moved. Breathing steady. Inhale, exhale, press. Someone tried to shout something at her. She didn't look back. A round cracked past the doorway and slammed into the interior wall. Concrete chipped. Fragments sprayed. Mara leaned back behind cover, listening not to the screaming, not to the alarm, but to rhythm, spacing, patterns. She leaned out again. Fired. Reloaded. A soldier near the doorway cried out and collapsed, blood spreading dark across his pant leg. He tried to crawl and failed. Mara slid backward without turning her back to the entrance. She grabbed him by the vest straps and hauled him behind a thick support beam. He was heavier than he looked. She didn't grunt, didn't slow. She dropped the rifle, yanked her belt free, wrapped it high and tight around his thigh, twisted, cinched. The bleeding slowed. The soldier stared at her, eyes wide. Are you a medic?" Mara shook her head once. "Stay down." She grabbed the rifle and rose into a crouch. Outside, one of the soldiers she'd directed earlier fired from behind stacked crates, measured shots, controlled. He had an angle now, exactly where she said he would. Another explosion rocked the far side of the base, smaller than the first, closer than anyone liked. The ground vibrated. Dust rained from the tent ceiling. Mara moved laterally along the interior wall, checking corners as she went. A habit not taught in kitchens, she reached the edge of the tent and leaned around. Movement, near the blind spot by the storage building. The gap she'd noticed earlier, 2 figures slipped through it. Mara raised the rifle. 3-round. Burst. Pause. 2-round burst. 1 figure dropped. The other vanished back into shadow. Mara shifted position. Reloaded. Someone behind her whispered, barely audible over the alarm. "She's not just a cook." Mara either didn't hear or didn't care. Another flare ignited overhead. The light caught her face. No rage, no thrill, no excitement. Just focus. The kind that erased everything else. Incoming fire resumed short. Testing bursts, Mara answered. Reloaded. Fired again. She didn't chase targets. Didn't lean into open ground. She held angles. Denied access. Made every probe expensive. A soldier near the doorway fumbled his rifle. Mara slapped his hand aside and corrected his grip. Safety off.
Ow.
He stared at her. She was already firing again. Dust thickened. The tent reeked of cordite and burned fabric. Someone cried. Someone prayed. Mara remained kneeling at the doorway. A cook's apron flapped over her legs, grease stains, blood specks. Rifle tight against her shoulder, another wounded soldier stumbled in and collapsed. Mara crawled backward, dragged him by the collar, pinned him with her knee. Quick check. Entry wound high on the shoulder. Heavy bleed. She pulled a tourniquet from his belt, wrapped, tightened, secured. "Hold this," she said. Placing his hand over it, he nodded frantically. Mara was already moving again. Outside, heavier weapons answered back. A mounted gun in a tower opened up. Longer bursts, deeper sound. The probing fire hesitated, surged, then faltered. Mara kept firing, kept moving, kept reloading. She never shouted orders, never announced herself. She moved like this wasn't new, like her body already knew the work. A soldier near the back whispered, voice shaking, "She moves like she's done this before." Mara didn't hear him. She was watching the blind spot. Ready? The firefight didn't end all at once. It thinned, staggered. Long pauses stretched between exchanges. Mara stayed at the doorway, rifle steady, eyes tracking shadows. Heavy boots approach, controlled, deliberate. A platoon sergeant slid into cover beside the support beam. Dust coated his helmet. His eyes swept the scene in a heartbeat. Wounded behind cover. Rifleman positioned at the crates, and Mara knelling at the doorway, apron over her uniform. He frowned, confused. Mara pressed her radio. "Raven 2, hold your left. They're testing the gap." The words came out clean, reflexive. The sergeant froze. Raven 2 wasn't a common call sign. Not on this base. Not on any roster he knew. He studied her posture, her stillness, the way she held the rifle. His gaze dropped as her shirt shifted. The plain steel necklace slipping into view. Recognition flickered. "Mara Hayes," he murmured. "Iron Raven." Mara didn't look at him. Didn't stop watching the doorway. "Not anymore, Sergeant." Flat, emotionless. Something clicked in his memory. He straightened without thinking and snapped a salute, pure reflex. Drilled deep. The salute hung. Mara finally turned her head. She didn't return it. She simply nodded once. The sergeant lowered his hand slowly. His voice changed. "Heard about Iron Raven years back. Blacked out program. Small teams. Ugly missions, was Mara said. Medical reassignment?" he asked. She nodded once. The sergeant moved slightly behind her, nodding command, protective. Supportive words spread without words. A soldier noticed the salute. Then another. Confusion shifted into awareness. Weapons steadied. Hands stopped shaking. One soldier near the doorway gave a small, silent nod. Another followed. Then another. Mara didn't react. She fired, reloaded, shifted position. The perimeter held. Enemy fire grew cautious, then thin, then faded. Contact dropping, a voice reported. "Perimeter holding," another confirmed. The alarm wailed a few seconds longer, then cut. Off, silence crashed down hard. Smoke drifted, coughing, groans. Mara lowered her rifle knot in triumph. "Just finished." She stood. Her legs didn't wobble. Her hands didn't shake. She moved immediately to the wounded. Checked breathing. Tightened tourniquets. Adjusted bandages. A medic rushed in. She stepped aside and moved to the next casualty. No one stopped her. The corporal who'd mocked her earlier stood frozen, watching. His rifle hung forgotten. "Mara," he said, voice cracking, I'm sorry." She looked at him for half a second. No anger, no judgment. She nodded once and returned to work. Days passed. Repairs were made. Life resumed quieter, more deliberate. Inside the chow tent, routine returned. Mara stood behind the serving line as always, but things were different. Morning. Specialist. A private said intentional. "Morning," she replied. No one joked about gravy duty anymore. They didn't need explanations. They had seen enough. Courage doesn't always wear rank. Sometimes it wears an apron, and it keeps showing up anyway.